Should be up right about
Okay.
now, actually. But
Just refresh it a little bit.
I think
If
there's a
not,
setting. There's a setting in
on my,
my what?
oh, yours. Okay.
Yeah, there's like a setting in Whereby, which is the program I'm using, the website, where you can like set it to be full screen or not full screen. I don't know where it
Mm.
is though. Used to mess with that a long time ago. It doesn't really make a difference. It's not a huge deal.
Actually, I don't know. It looks fine on YouTube. It just popped up now.
Yeah, I mean, like normally it's like the screen. There's like a big green thing in between our faces. Normally that's not
Oh,
there, and usually it's like we take up the full screen.
I don't know.
Settings, settings, theme. Nope, that's not it. Video, audio, noise reduction, HD. Prefer HD video when available. Possible takes more resources. I guess I can do that. Let's do that. Widescreen video. I prefer widescreen when available. Reload to update. All right. All right. Now it's a little better. Now we're closer together on the screen now.
Oh,
With
how
friends.
sweet.
Yeah. All right. That should be good enough. All right. We are live, right? We show up on live on the YouTubes. Uh, yep. Yep. We are live. 15 watching. That's good. All right. Kim, thanks for
Hello,
coming on.
15.
Appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about
Of
yourself before we get
course.
started?
Yeah, and I was trying to remember. I think we've been trying to get this done since mid-October, or November, from what I recall, because I was still trying to work two full-time jobs back to back, and then you were traveling, and stuff just kept coming up, huh?
Yep. I had last time I had to reschedule was I had like an impromptu date. So one of my friends
Whoa,
who is
hello, do tell.
yeah. So one of my friends who was a who's a lead ballet dancer here in Minneapolis, he's like, "Hey, we want to go on a double date like tomorrow." I'm like tomorrow? That's a little short notice, but so I called up the girl I'm dating, like, "Hey, yeah, you free tomorrow?" He's like, "All right." So it just happened to work out that everybody except me was free. So like, Ken, can we reschedule? I got this double date thing. Yep,
Yep. And
it's
then
good though.
I took a little bit of time off to deal with a certain sickness that's been going around the world.
The not COVID.
Yeah, the big C.
Yeah, I don't get demonetized ever for talking about COVID, which is really nice.
Oh, huh. Yeah. I mean, why should you just for talking about it? But hey, who knows?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, it's a weird cyber world out there.
Yep. So you want to tell us
Oh yeah,
about?
yeah, about me. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, contextually, I guess I'll emphasize that I was raised completely secular, 100%. My my parents, whom I won't talk to about very much because of my sense of filial piety or piety. They'd think I'm pretty much nuts right now because I'm a Jew who has come to recognize that Jesus is the Messiah.
And they are
And
Jews,
yeah,
regular Jews.
what's that?
They are like classical Jews that don't accept Jesus. That's the difference between you and them.
Yes, I would use the term rabbinic Jews. I
Gotcha.
mean, rabbinic Judaism, the overwhelming majority of Jews on the planet are rabbinic Jews. It's just that that's not the religion of the Tanakh. It's not the Old Testament religion. It came about later. Like there's no rabbinate in the system of rabbis. There's no rabbinate in the Old Testament.
And you are a Messianic Jew, is that correct?
Yeah, I'd go with that. And
Cool.
my buddy here, Bruce Lee, he's Jewish too, or he was. His grand on his grandparents' side, I think his grandma was Jewish.
Because I remember Bruce Lee was an atheist though.
Oh well, see, that's one of those interesting things about Judaism is it can be defined theologically or genetically.
Oh yeah, like your
Right,
origin location. It's ethnicity.
right, right. Yeah, genealogically. So yeah, that's one of the interesting things about it. And in fact, I found Catholics are a lot alike because they'll be like, "Well, I'm Catholic because my family's Catholic." Well,
Yep.
do you believe in the theology? No, but I'm Catholic. Okay, I don't. It's one of those weird cultural things.
Yep. The cultural Christian Jordan Peterson types. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Dawkins said the same
I'm an
thing. Called a
atheist.
Christian.
So I'm an atheist. I don't believe that there's any evidence of a God. I think that everything is better explained by naturalism. Could you tell us some of the reasons you think that there is reason to believe in a God?
Well, for me, that sort of a question is really down the line. So maybe we need to do a little digging around for groundwork first.
Okay.
So then, um, why? I told you I'm like almost ready to take a nap. So let's just bottom line this thing. What would even be a reason to bother discussing this,
It's
right? To,
fun.
to talk about. Oh, well. Okay, see, that's good. I can really appreciate that. So we would say that objectively, there's no reason, certainly not in an atheistic worldview. There's really no reason except that it's a subjective personal preference, right?
No,
I
I
mean,
think that
because it's fun.
I think most atheists believe there is objective reason and truth in the world. I don't think
Yeah,
any
but
atheists
then
think
again,
reason is subjective. Don't think most atheists don't think that.
yeah, but of course, what atheists or most atheists believe is not necessarily the issue. The issue is whether there is an issue, whether it really matters.
Yeah, so what I mean is
So,
that under pretty much every view of atheism, there is objective reason.
well, I mean, atheists would have to reason, which is unreasonable circular reasoning. Not that it matters in atheism.
What? Like, I don't understand what you're saying. So reasoning exists, obviously, we're doing it. And it can come about without a God just fine. Like, you don't need
Yeah,
reasoning.
so that's interesting. So,
Go ahead.
well, okay, let's say that we grant, well, yeah, reasoning could come about in an atheistic universe. Um, okay, but so what? So does lava. So so do black holes. So does a lot of stuff that we wouldn't want to dive into.
Yes. I
So
don't
I mean,
follow the point.
it's like we're at this point we're just saying that granting an atheistic universe reason, the ability to reason is a brute fact. Like all these. I love the term "the furniture of the universe." That's makes me feel like a moving truck just pulled up and unloaded a universe. So okay, yeah. So it's I'm granting that would be part of the nature of the universe of existence and an ability we have. But okay, and what's what's the big to do?
To do. I mean, reasoning is a tool. It's like a hammer. We use it to do stuff.
Yeah, that is true. Of course, we could use a hammer to knock somebody over the head for no apparent reason or for driving nails into a piece of wood to build a house. And well, in an atheistic universe, it seems to me that the choice between the two would be a subjective personal preference
Choice
based
between
on hidden assumptions.
two what?
Like using a hammer to knock somebody over the head for our enjoyment or driving a nail into a piece of wood to build a house.
Right. So you can use reason to do good or evil.
Right. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's in the hand of the beholder.
Sure.
That makes any sense.
Why is
It's
that a
like the
problem?
Force, and the great mythos of Star Wars, the Force. It's impersonal, right? You tap into it. The Jedi use it for their will, and the Sith for theirs, and the one thinks they're good guys, and the other one's evil, and the other guys think that they're the good guys, and the other guys are evil. It's impersonal. it has no preference of its own. It's just like a subjective thing.
Yeah. So you can use reason in different ways, but it's still objectively true. One is right, one is wrong.
It, are you saying it's objectively true that one would be right and one would be wrong in
Yeah,
this
like
scenario?
people can use reasoning in different ways, and they can come to correct conclusions and incorrect conclusions, but there is a truth there. It's the truth isn't subjective.
Um, no, I wouldn't say the truth. Okay, so again, we're still granting an atheistic universe. I think the issue would be that, by definition, then truth would be accidental, as would our ability to discern it. And there'd be no universal imperative to adhere to it, nor would there be a universal imperative for us to demand or even expect that others will adhere to it. So it's kind of like, it seems like if that's the case, then we'd be at a dead stop right there, and everything that follows would just be emotive subjectivism.
I have no idea what you just said. So truth can't be accidental. Like you can't accidentally have a sentence correspond to reality. So like truth is, if you say a sentence, the sky is blue, it's not accidentally the case that it's true. Either it's true or it's not true. It can't be accidentally true.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we say whether a sentence we state corresponds to truth, we both know that instantly gets us into the issue of ontology versus epistemology. So
What?
at this point, I'm only going as far as saying that the truth to which the sentence would correspond itself is accidental.
I have
And,
no idea what you're saying. So
and then,
like a sentence say the sky is blue. Either it does correspond to reality or it doesn't correspond to reality. It's only true if it does correspond to reality, and so it can't
yeah,
accidentally
but
be true.
yes, but well, I shouldn't say yes, I should say no. Um,
What about that is
but that the
no?
sky is blue, that we can discern it, that we can make statements that correspond one to the other, that's all accidental. That's what I'm saying.
Like our ability to reason as a result of evolution is accidental?
Right. And the very system of evolution that would get us to that point, as well as the reality that we're seeking to accurately represent out of just a subjective personal preference based on hidden assumptions.
Well, so the first part, yeah, on evolution could have like produced us with different minds, like ants or whatever, and ants can't communicate or do reason necessarily, but evolution can't give us perfectly random logic. Like evolution can't make us imagine a round square. It doesn't matter what happens. Evolution, there's no way for it to make us imagine a round square. We can't do it. We can't imagine things that are logically impossible because evolution can only produce things that are compatible with reality. So obviously we couldn't, like evolution can't make our brain imagine things which are not possible in reality, like round squares, married bachelors.
Uh, yeah, I'm not sure I would go with that. There's plenty of abstract reasoning, abstract art, and very abstract people with very strange ideas that don't correspond to anything even close to reality.
Well, right, but like,
But
do you know of anybody who can imagine a round square?
let me see. Oh, I'm trying to visualize an MC Escher etching. That gets us pretty close, but I think the primary issue would be that. Okay, let me take a step back. The reason I'm using the word accidental is because if the universe was not designed, not created, not the end goal of a mindful, like a volitional plan, it wasn't meant to be. It just sort of happens to have happened the way it happened, right?
Yep.
And that's what I mean by accidental. And so that means that reality is accidental because It didn't have to happen. It could have happened differently. The reality we experience just so happens to have happened, as is our ability to discern it. It just happens to have come about.
Okay, so how is that
And
different from a God? Like if there's a universe with the laws of physics that create everything we see around us, and it's necessarily the result of the laws of physics that exist, how is that different from God creating a universe this way?
well, I think that the problem becomes at this stage that would seem to be a non-issue or an issue that would be discussed way, way down the line because we're still working on step one,
Well, no. So
which
here,
is,
here's you mentioned if it's not designed or intentional, then it happened by chance or something like that. But the
yeah, close
question
enough. That's
is
fine.
like if a God designed something, that would be exactly the same as if the laws of physics determined something. So whether or not it's designed by a God or determined by physics, those are the exact same. So we both get rationality in both cases, and there's no difference between the two.
Oh, that what we get at the end as an end result, yeah, that's a separate issue. I'm still working on that. There would be no universal imperative to adhere to that accidental reality, right?
I don't know what you
Because
mean. So like
um,
adhere, like do you mean leave reality? Like can we stop being a part of reality, or do you mean like beliefs?
yeah, so I'll just make a contextual point then about that. Let's say I'm saying, hey, I believe God exists for sure, and you say, well, I don't, and then you want to ask me about why I do, and my reply would be something like, but it doesn't matter on your worldview because if I'm just an accidentally and temporarily existing ape living in an accidentally existing temporary universe, then what does it matter what I believe? I mean, seriously, it's what does it matter?
What
What does it
sounds
matter if I'm not accurately representing accidental reality in a universe where there is no universal imperative for me to adhere to accidental reality? You see what I mean?
oh,
Is
nope.
that
It sounds like an appeal to consequence fallacy or an appeal to motive fallacy, like saying that, well, the consequence of the belief somehow matters to its truth, which obviously it doesn't. Like, it doesn't, like, even if there's no consequence of believing one way or the other, it's one is still true and one is still false. So it doesn't matter what the consequences are.
But see, we're not going that far yet. We're still taking the very first step. So I would say something like, you're claiming that it sounds like a fallacy, and I'm at the point of saying, fallacy? What are you talking about? We're not even anywhere close to talking about fallacy as being some sort of a standard or logic being some sort of standard. We're still at the very first step that if we're living in a accidentally existing universe, then by definition, reality is accidental, ergo truth is accidental, facts are accidental,
Well, truth can't
as
be,
is our
again,
ability
truth,
to.
truth and facts can't be accidental. So there's no difference between a God reality and a determined reality. Either they're both accidental or they're both determined. They can't be different. So it doesn't matter if you start with a God or if you start with atheism, you get the exact same results. Either logic is true or it's not in both cases. Either the reality is determined or it's not in both cases. So the dichotomy you're presenting is a false dichotomy. You're saying, oh, well, if you start with an atheistic universe, then there's some not, it's not as grounded, but it is. It's just as grounded as a God. There's no difference between the two.
So, so I was just going to repeat something because there's kind of four angles I'm looking at here. So it might help just to repeat them. So what I'm saying is that if the universe is uncreated, then by definition it's accidental,
No. So it can be determined. So there's again, you're
determined
saying
by.
so when you keep saying that if it's not created, then it's accidental. So something that's created can be accidental, and something that's created can be not accidental. Something that's uncreated can be accidental, and something that's uncreated can be not accidental. So whether or not it's created or uncreated, they're the exact same. Either it's accidental or not accidental, and there's the exact same options between the two. So there's no difference. You've provided no difference between the two hypotheses. Created and uncreated could both be either accidental or not accidental. They're both the same. There's no reason to prefer one or the other here.
Well, there is, especially as we get down the line a little bit, but I apologize. I'm still stuck on step one. So, by definition, if the universe didn't have to exist and it didn't have to exist this way, then we can use the term determined if it makes us feel better, but we're still talking about the same thing, something that need not have existed and happen to just happen to have happened this way. It could have not happened at all. It just happens to have happened, and it happened to have happened this way.
Which is exactly the same as a God. So either God could have created the universe this way, or he could have created a different way. Either nature could have deterministically caused the universe to be this way, or it could have deterministically caused it to be a different way. So again, those are the exact same with the created and uncreated. Still the same. So there's still no difference between the two. They are both equally as justified.
Well, except if we're gonna see, we're stepping into the realm of um, matching our ideas against reality and logic, and I don't even see how we got there yet.
Oh,
But well, that's what we're doing, right? I mean, we're having a styled contest to see whose views more accurately represent reality.
no, right now all I'm doing is an internal critique of what you're saying. So what you're saying is that if the universe isn't designed, then it must be random. That's false. The universe could be a chance based or something like that. So if the universe is not designed, it may be chance based or it may not be chance based. If the universe is designed, it may be chance based or it may not be chance based. So based off of what you're saying and whatever worldview you're using, the argument you're making does not follow because the same conclusions work for both of the thing you're saying. So you keep saying if it's not designed, it's by this way. Well, that does not follow from your own logic. From the things you are saying, that does not follow.
Were you just to double check? I'm not charging you of anything. Were you swapping out random for chance? I mean, is that something?
Yeah, I was just using those words because that's when I hear the word chance, it fills in as being synonymous with random. So I can't usually recall exactly what you're saying word for word. So I just
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just checking because it sounded like you swapped one for the other.
Yep.
And for our purposes, they might as well be the same. I mean,
Yep.
You might as well say accident, random, chance, accidental, random, chance. It doesn't. It's all the same.
Yep.
So I mean, the thing is that so if we start talking and you self-identify as an atheist, I self-identify as a Christian or a Messianic Jew, then yeah, that obviously carries a lot of baggage for both of us.
Right.
A lot of the baggage.
Like you said, we haven't gotten that far yet. So I'm just going based off of what you said. So just in your worldview, you said that if the universe isn't designed, then it's a result of accident or chance or whatever. Now that's false. That's false in your worldview because in your worldview, you've provided no reason to think that if something isn't designed, the only other option is chance. And you've provided no reason to say that if something is designed, it's not a result of chance. So because you haven't proven that if it's designed that eliminates chance, then something that is designed could be a result of chance. Like God's nature could be a result of chance, or the way God designs things could be a result of chance. He could just randomly design it. And because you haven't proven that if it's not designed, that means it necessarily must be accident, because it could be determined. It could be like the necessary laws of the universe may necessarily require this to be the case. So it's not chance, it's not random. It's exactly the same as God's nature. It is a necessary thing without the God. And so it would not be chance. So your first argument, or your first claim that if something is not designed, then it must necessarily be accident is false. Accident is one option in both the designed and the non-designed case. And necessity is an option in both the designed and the non-designed case. So right now you haven't shown a difference between design and non-design. They're both of them could either be accident or both of them could either be necessity.
So we're still at the impasse, I think, where we're applying logic where we haven't even established that that's any kind of standard. But so what would be the third way, the horn splitting third way that sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you, but I looked up from what I was writing and you're like I was like, huh? What happened? Okay, he's fine. Never mind. He
Yeah,
passed away on us.
the
No,
reason I'm making that face is I'm not following what you're
no, that's
saying.
fine. It was just a funny thing to look up and see, like. So I'm not sure how necessity comes into it when there was no necessity for a universe to exist.
Why do you think that? Like, I think there was.
Okay, so how in whatever we would call a universeless whatever it was, why would there suddenly be a necessity for a universe to exist?
The
Or
nature
how?
of the
Why or
quantum
how?
fields determined it to exist, so it was a necessary result.
Okay. So then the quantum fields were either, it seems to me, the quantum fields that preceded the universe would just sort of have happened to have happened.
No, they were always that way. So they exist outside of space and time, and they have always been that way.
Of course, yeah, um, that sounds like something that we can't verify, but if we go with it, that there's this sort of steady state wave theory or whatever we want to call it, then yeah, again, we're just dealing with something, with a mechanism that just happens to have happened, and one day just so happened to create a universe that just was a byproduct of something happening all by itself.
Right, and that's the exact same as the God hypothesis. God so happens to happen his particular nature, and he so happens to choose to create a world at whatever time t equals zero or whatever. So that's the exact same under both the designed and non-designed hypothesis. So there's no difference there, except ours has evidence. We have evidence of quantum fields.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like logic. Is we're not at the point of appealing to evidence yet. I'm not even sure we're at the point of getting past step one.
Well, again, for
But
the
then,
logic thing, either logic does apply, which applies both to God and no God, or logic doesn't apply, which applies both to God and no God. So if either way, it doesn't matter if we accept logic or we don't accept logic, that's still the same under both cases. So there's still no difference between the two, even whichever way you want to go. If you want to say we accept logic, then we accept logic with a God and we accept logic without a God. And if you say we don't accept logic, then you don't accept logic with God or you don't accept logic without a God. So all of these cases work equally as well under both the God and no God hypothesis. So it doesn't matter which way you want to go. You haven't shown that there's a difference between the two hypotheses.
well, in the 4 points that I made earlier, the issue was that when the 4 points were if we are in a universe that was accidentally random chanced, and we living organisms that are capable of mindfulness were accidentally random chanced. There's also no universal imperative for us to adhere to that accidental random chance reality. I mean, we could. I mean, it's a subjective personal preference. We could, but it's not like we have to. So if someone's illogical, it's really irrelevant. And then the other point was
Wait,
then there's
I
also
don't understand
no,
that point. So I don't understand what
yeah,
you're saying there. People's internal motivations are irrelevant to truth. So bringing up people's motivations doesn't matter. It's an appeal to motive fallacy.
yeah, well, not that it matters on atheism is my point,
It does.
that
It
you're
does. So
claiming
on
it's a
atheism, we
fallacy.
accept logic and reason. So if you don't want to accept logic and reason,
Well,
that's
okay,
fine.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we accept logic and
Yeah,
reason.
no, okay, yeah. Let me take a step back. I'm not arguing against logic or reason. I'm just
Well, it seems like you are because you
trying
keep
to take.
saying you keep arguing that there's some possible worldview in your ideas that doesn't accept logic and reason. In ours, there isn't. You don't get that option in atheism. It's only with theism that thinks that you can't have logic and reason.
Well, for one, I'm not sure you should speak a dogmatheistically, if I may make a clunky word, like dogmatheism, like you're being dogmatic. We, all atheists, ergo, believe this. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't pull every atheist into the same camp, but that's fine. I'm talking to you tonight, so okay.
Well, I mean, so
So,
there are some theists who think that God can make 1 + 1 = 5, and
Tom,
well, there's many theists who think that God can make 1 + 1 = 5, and that God can break the rules of logic. And so again, it's the theistic view that rejects logic, and the atheistic view does not reject logic.
yeah, well, but I'm just saying those are just extremely broad brush terms. I mean, they're like if you say theism, that covers virtually every human being that has ever existed, and I'm not prepared to try to defend or argue in favor of virtually every human being that's ever existed,
Actually, the most were
right?
atheists. Most humans didn't believe in a God. If we take all humanity from the past 200,000 years, most humans did not believe in God. That's actually a relatively new thing.
That would be an interesting study to read. But so no, I'm not arguing against logic. I'm just trying to work my way up to it. Right. And that's why I'm saying I'm not sure we're ready to appeal to it as a standard or claim fallacy or request evidence, any of that stuff. I don't think we've gotten there quite yet.
I'm not sure what you mean.
But I'm just making,
So logic is a description of reality. Logic is a result of evolution, which caused us to have these things. So now I have, in my worldview, I now have logic, which I can use to
well,
justify things. So my worldview has gotten me there.
yeah, I know, but I mean, we both know when we say the word logic, we're really referring to two things. We're referring to naturally occurring phenomena, and then we're referring to our description of that phenomena. Right. So if we say laws of logic, we're referring to the phenomena in and of itself. And we also mean our description that we can put in pithy catchphrases like the law of non-contradiction. That's a law of logic. Yeah. But it's describing what? Well, it's describing reality.
Reality.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
reality
yeah.
exists. Logic describes reality. Our brains
Yeah.
exist. They are
Right.
in reality, and
Right.
they describe reality with logic. So we now have logic. We now have fallacies. We can now use those as justification.
Can exactly. Yes. Can. Yeah, we can. Of course we can. We can do
Yes,
anything.
that's what I'm doing right
Not
now. So I've
literally, but
logically shown that your argument does not follow because of your statement. If it's not designed, it must be chance is false. So I've logically proven that's false. If you want to reject logic, that's
but
fine, but we should be past that.
is it? Is it?
Is what?
Is it fine if I want to reject
Yeah.
logic?
Yeah, you can reject logic as much
Well,
as you want. I don't care.
well, there you go. That's why I picked on the word can, because you're saying we can use it. Well, yeah, of course we can.
Right?
We can do a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean we ought or should. It's
Well,
just,
again,
like I said, it's a
that's
subjective personal preference du jour based on hidden assumptions. Yeah, we can. Sure, of course we can.
right. But that's what I
Because
brought up
we
the
have,
appeal to motive fallacy. So if you can use a calculator to calculate quantum mechanics or whatever, and you can get the right answer, or you can just shake a magic 8 ball and pick up a number off of the top of your head, but one of them is correct and one of them is not correct. So you can choose to not be logical. That's perfectly fine. I don't care. But I'm going to choose to be logical to get the right answer. And if you can't get the right answer, I'm
right.
going to call out you on getting the wrong answer.
Exactly my point. You are going to choose. It's just
Yes.
Tom's pastime du jour. That's what you feel like choosing.
Yes, I
Yeah,
choose logic.
yeah. We're agreeing that it's a subjective personal preference of yours. There's no
Sure.
arguing about that, is there?
Well, I mean, you can't choose not logic. Like, you can't choose round square. You can't, that's not an option. There's no way for you to choose to imagine a round square. But
But I thought the whole point about making at least a part of your life being some sort of, I hope you don't mind a pointed term, some sort of atheist missionary. I thought the whole point was to tell theists that they're being illogical and they shouldn't be illogical. Or is your
no.
point just that you have free time during the day and you want to do something with it? And you're telling theists,
Oh,
hey, in my subjective personal opinion, you're being illogical, but there's no universal imperative to be logical. So it's not really relevant. It's just, I got to fill up some time or
Well,
whatever.
it seems like you're confusing the need for a universal imperative to be illogical. Like, it seems like you're saying that if there's no universal imperative, then it's not possible to be illogical, which is
No, no,
false.
no, 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 no. It's not about whether, if there's no universal imperative, you can be logical or can be illogical.
Right.
It's just that it would be a subjective personal preference de jure based on hidden assumptions. That's all I'm saying.
No. So like there's a truth statement like the moon is 250,000 miles away. Like you can agree to that, you can believe that, or you could not believe that. Now there's no
Right.
like imperative there that says you should believe this, but you can still be right or
Right.
wrong even if there's no imperative. It's not subjective. You're not subjectively right or subjectively wrong, but there's no imperative. You don't need an
Yeah.
imperative for truth values. So you can be irrational or illogical objectively even without a imperative. You don't need any kind of categorical imperative to be illogical.
Right. Yeah. We're agreeing on that.
Oh,
In a
okay.
manner of speaking, we're agreeing on that. My only point to buttress that is that that's why it doesn't matter ultimately if someone's accurately representing reality or not, because there are no universal imperative. So yes, something is absolutely true, something is absolutely false, even in an atheist universe. My point is that it doesn't really matter.
Right, and that was where I said that's an appeal to motive fallacy, and whether or not people care doesn't matter to whether or not it's true. So I care about is it true? I do not care about whether or not there's some imperative to whether or not you should believe it's true. It's irrelevant. So whether or not someone says you should believe what's true doesn't matter. I want to know, is it true? I don't care if there's some imperative of whether people say you should believe what's true. That doesn't matter. So is it true is a different question to whether or not there's some imperative that you should believe it's true. And the two are separate. You don't need one for the other.
So that's why I keep notice. Just now I wrote down two quotations. You said I care and you said I want. But
Yeah.
that's my point. It's all based on Tom's subjective personal preference.
Well,
It's what you want, it's what you
I don't
care.
think you're following. I don't think you're following. So what anyone wants does not matter. Things are true. If no humans ever existed, there would still be true things and there'd still be false things.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So I'm asking a question about a true thing, is this true? What everyone in the world wants is irrelevant. Makes no difference to the answer to the question. Right?
Yeah.
You with
Truth
me?
is absolute regardless, period.
Right. So if I'm asking a question, is this true? And you keep saying, well, what about the motivation? Well, that doesn't matter. Like there's no possible sentence where you can add, but the motivation or the imperative, because that will never make a difference to the answer. Well, it changes nothing. So it's a complete
In
irrelevance
a way,
to my question.
but it does matter because if we determine just unbiasedly, right? You and I are just watching something and we both agree, hey, that's true. Okay, there is that absolute truth, and we can both agree to it. All right, we're on the same boat at this point in the story. And then, but there's the next step where we go, well, then now what? Ergo, what? What does that mean? What does it matter? And it's that in the point of application, in the point of epistemology, where we go beyond, hey, X is a brute fact, and we can both accept it and agree on it. Now what?
Well, we haven't
Right.
gotten there yet. We're still trying to go, is it true? Like who cares about the now what? The now what is irrelevant.
Oh, no, well, we're done. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're agreeing that truth is absolute and regardless, period, full stop.
Right.
It's just that
No, we're asking more than that. We're saying, is it true that God exists? That's the part where that's still a truth question. What you do with that doesn't matter. Motivation doesn't matter. What the consequences are don't matter. None of those imperative questions matter to this question. We're still on a truth question. Like, is it true? That's one kind of a question. And then what would you do with it if it is true? What is the consequence? That's a different question. That's the imperative question. The imperative question does not matter. It's irrelevant. There's no value to the question at all. It's like, who cares? The only thing that matters is the is it true question. So I'm asking the is it true question. And the imperative thing just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can grant that because the very question, is it true, carries a ton of baggage. It's based on hidden assumptions. It's not just an unbiased question in a vacuum. It exists based on hidden assumptions. To even ask such a question, is it true? Well, who cares? Could be a one answer. What does it matter? See, that's why we constantly
No.
constantly get.
No, you can't do any of that you just said. So is it true? None of your assumptions matter. If no human beings existed, the answer would still be the same. It either is or it isn't. So there can't be hidden assumptions there. There can't be biases. There can't be intentionality. It is either a fact, it is true, or it is a fact that is not true. Remember, you agreed to this before. You said that truth, there is truth, it is objective. No opinions matter to it. So there can't be hidden assumptions there. Truth isn't based on assumptions.
No. The truth, no, you're right. Truth is not based on assumptions, but let's remove humans from this universe that just happens to have, okay. Yeah. This universe still contains brute facts, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it contains truth. Whether we're there, the tree will make a sound in the forest if it falls, whether we're there to hear it or not, because sound waves still proceed forth from it. But then we can't, it seems to me, then detach the fact that we are both human beings in this universe asking the question, is it true? We can't detach that, or else
yes, we can. We just did.
Discussion.
Yes, we can very easily detach that. So like before, I don't know, are you a young Earth creationist or old Earth creationist?
I'm an I could care less creationist.
Okay, so like 10 billion years ago, before any humans existed, did God exist?
Oh, you're actually asking that question.
What?
I don't know if it was rhetorical.
No, yeah, it's like a literal question. So this is a question we're asking. So before any humans ever existed, did God exist?
Are there rhetorical answers or just questions? We should debate that one. I'm just kidding. Yes.
Okay, why think that statement is true and not false?
See.
I've just eliminated all humans. There's no humans here. None of them. And so no opinions matter. No prior commitments matter. No assumptions matter. We're just saying, why think that statement is true?
But the missing puzzle piece is that's not a question.
Sure sounds like a question. How is that not a question?
I'm saying it is a question. That's my whole point. It is a question because you're asking it.
Yes.
Right. We can agree that you asked a question. Yes, we got somewhere.
and it would still be a question even if I didn't ask it. The question would still be there.
Well, no, it wouldn't. It would just, no. That's my point. It would not be a question if you didn't ask it, because there'd be no asker.
No. So like,
that's why we have to insert ourselves into that universe. And once we've inserted ourselves into it, now we're dealing with, why is that question even a question? Why is it a relevant question? Why is it important? Why is it even something that we need to discuss? And what does it matter? That's the problem.
No, you don't need any of that. None of that. That's all appeal to motive fallacy. So we can say, like, dinosaurs existed. That's a fact. And you can ask the question, did dinosaurs exist before humans? And the answer is yes. And the answer was always yes. The answer was yes throughout time before humans ever answered the question or asked the question, because propositions describe reality. And the way reality is, the facts of reality are all answers to questions, whether or not we ask them. Like, did dinosaurs exist? Yes. Was that answer the same answer before any human asked the question? Yes. So you don't need to ask a question for there to be an answer that is true. The answer can be there before you ever ask the question. It's called a proposition.
Yeah, but see, we already got to that point, and I thought we already passed it, because you asked if however long ago before humans existed, did God exist? The answer I gave is yes. So we're done with that part.
Yes.
We're done.
Now I'm asking, why believe that? What is the evidence to indicate that answer over the opposite answer?
Right. You see, now we're in a whole different category. That's my point.
No.
Because now you're appealing, now you're demanding evidence as one example. Now you're demanding evidence. That's a whole different category than is it a brute fact. The brute fact is established. That's behind us already.
What?
Now we're in a different ballgame.
God's existence is not a brute fact.
Okay, but the question was, in that scenario, does God exist? The answer is yes. And now we're in the category of discussing why, or why is that, or why isn't the case? Is there evidence? Is there not evidence? Now we got a ton of baggage we're carrying around with us.
What?
Those are the hidden assumptions. That's why we can't remove ourselves from it,
There's no
because we're no longer in
there's no hidden assumptions there. Like if we ask, did
Of
dinosaurs
course there are.
exist? No,
No, of course.
no. It's like if we ask,
Of
did
course.
dinosaurs exist? We could say yes, dinosaurs existed, and then we would say, well, why do you think dinosaurs existed? The answers would be
Right.
fossils. There's stuff there that indicates this.
Okay, good. If we could just pause a second right there. Okay. We should believe in dinosaurs because we have the evidence of the fossils.
No, I don't care what you should believe. I want to know, is it true? Like whether you should believe it is irrelevant. Did
Okay,
dinosaurs
fine.
exist? Yes. Why? Fossils. There's no should.
Okay.
There's not a should anywhere
That's
in
fine.
that.
That's fine. No problem. I'm willing to drop that. So, dinosaurs existed. Fossils exist.
Yes.
That is based on the hidden assumption that I want to say the word should, base our views about reality on evidence. That's a hidden assumption.
It's an assumption that we should base our views on evidence.
Right.
What would be the alternative to that assumption?
Oh, no, wait a minute. You know, let's attempt to not sidestep the point by asking, well, if I can't think of an alternative, then I have to accept it.
Well, I can
mean,
list some alternatives for you if you want. But the point here is that that's not an assumption. That's a conclusion. So, for example, I imagine.
Well, hold on, just a sec. It's a conclusion to which we merely jumped. That's the problem. Tom jumped at it.
Yes. So you're right. I did not explain why we bases our belief off of evidence. That's usually something most people already understand.
No, that's not even my concern.
Well, I thought it was. So, like, if what you're saying is that I have not given a reason to why that we base our beliefs off of evidence, like I can do this. So the reason we base our beliefs off of evidence is because our minds can't differentiate between imagination and reality. And so we need some methodology that can, and that methodology is evidence. Therefore, we use evidence because it can differentiate imagination from reality, and our minds can't.
And where we get stuck is why we should opt for one versus the other one. Why we should live why we should hold to views that accurately
That doesn't matter.
reality versus some kind of delusion.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference.
Exactly my
again,
point. On an atheistic
no,
universe, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter on a theistic universe or an atheistic universe or any universe.
Okay, well,
because the question is does God exist? It isn't should you believe God exists. Those are two separate questions. It's asking do dinosaurs exist and do unicorns exist? One question does not matter to the other. You can answer one without ever answering the other. So we can answer the question, does God exist and is there evidence for God? Without ever knowing any reason, without ever having any reason of why we should believe this. We don't need any of that. We can still answer the questions.
Okay, but I'm afraid you snuck something in there. See, because now it was, does God exist and is there evidence for his existence?
We can answer both of those questions without any motivation. No imperatives. We don't need any imperatives to answer either of those questions.
No, I beg to differ. I really do. I really beg you.
Well, like a computer can answer these questions. Like if you go to Google and you ask, do dinosaurs exist? Google will say yes. Google has no imperatives. It doesn't want anything. It's just looking at the answers.
Well, that's a hot political topic there that I won't touch. The biased search results and all of that. But I don't want to get into that. So again, we said that if we are let's say we world build, as they say, we world build where the answer is yes, God exists. That's it. If we're done with that, like I was saying before, the very next step takes us into a whole different realm, such as that, well, the implication, or not the implication, the assertion was that we should believe that God actually does exist if there's evidence. Well, that's a whole other category. That's a whole different ballgame than.
No, I haven't asked that question. So I don't care whether or
Well,
not.
you did a minute ago. I don't know
Nope,
if it was just
nope,
rhetorical.
no.
Or not, but you did.
There's three questions there. One is, does God exist? Two is there evidence? And three is, should we believe things based off of evidence? Now, I don't care what the answer to the third question is. Makes no difference. If you don't want to believe things based off evidence, that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't change the answer to either of the other questions. The other questions would still be answered the same, independent of the third question, right?
The original, the first question?
So the three questions are, does God exist?
Yeah.
Is there evidence of God? Should we believe things based off of evidence?
Right.
And none of the answer to any of those questions is relevant to the third one. The third one doesn't matter. The first two you will still answer independent of the third one.
Well, okay. In an atheist universe, the third one doesn't matter.
Well, in any universe, the third one doesn't matter. Like, there's no way for the third one to matter. It's literally an appeal to motive fallacy.
Okay, but we're jumping to the conclusion that we should reject a view if it's fallacious. And we're not there yet.
No, whether you should accept or reject is irrelevant. Like, that's the third question. Like, it doesn't matter.
Oh, you're saying it's a brute fact that it's a fallacious.
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter. So like the question, does God exist, has an answer. The question, is there evidence for God, has an answer. And the question, should we believe things based off of evidence, also. So each one of those has an answer. Now, no matter how you answer the third question, it doesn't change the answer to the first or the second. It's irrelevant. Makes no difference however you answer. You can answer it however way you want. You can say potato. Should you believe things based off evidence? Potato. Potato is my answer. Now that we have that question answered, sure, potato. So now you can answer the other two questions, because it doesn't matter how you answer the third question. It's irrelevant. So we've answered the third question. The third question's answer is potato. Now, is there evidence for God?
I already told you, potato. We're going to debate potato.
It's fine.
Tomato.
So what's the evidence for God?
We already got to. We've already been here and done that. So if I say yes to the first one, God exists as a brute fact.
Yep.
Then you're going to follow up with the second question.
Yep.
Is there evidence?
Yep.
And then we're pretty much done, because that's just a jump to a conclusion that if something's true, there should be evidence.
Nope. No part of that. No part of that is in the question. None of that is in the question. So, like, if I say,
okay, let me simplify it. Let me just simplify it. So let's go to the question 2. Is there evidence for God's existence? I say yes.
Cool. What is it?
Now, are we done?
No, what is it?
Well, exactly. See, this is why we're into a whole different realm. In order to discuss what is and isn't evidence, what counts and doesn't count as evidence, how do we discern those questions? That's a whole different ballgame.
No, it's not.
We'll be appealing back to reality. We'll be appealing back to truth and facts and logic. And so we're bringing all that baggage with us.
What? That's not baggage. None of that is baggage. So again,
of course it is.
I never said you need to have good evidence. Like, you could say, if I say, what is the evidence for God? You could say, potato. Potato is your evidence of God.
Potato. Yeah. There you go.
So I'm going to make fun of you for that, but that can be your answer. That's perfectly fine as an answer. And you can say, you believe in God because potato. And that's fine. You can do that. I don't care. But I'm just interested to see if there are reasons, there are evidence that you accept. And I can then assess, in my worldview, whether or not those things are reasonable. Whether or not you accept it doesn't make a difference.
Exactly.
No. So whether or not you accept it, whether or not I think it's evidence, none of that matters. We're just asking the question, what is it that you think is evidence?
Gotcha. So I think that we've come full circle, and we're agreeing to what I stated up front, which is that this is just a purely subjective personal preference exercise. So Tom would listen to me saying God exists because of potato. And that's fine. And then Tom wants to reject it, and that's fine, because that's what Tom wants to do.
Again, so things that are evidence is objectively either evidence or not evidence, regardless of our opinions. Now, we can use our opinions to try and assess it.
Yeah, that's really tricky. That's really dicey.
No, it's not. Why would that be dicey?
I mean, there are fine points as to the nature of evidence and what would count or wouldn't count. I mean, it can get very, very slippery.
No,
I'm not
not
sure if,
really.
well, of course.
It's like if I say, does the sun exist? The answer is yes. Like, could we be in the Matrix? Like, we can think that, but the answer is
Yeah,
there.
I'm not going there.
Well, that's exactly
Yeah.
what you're going. So you keep saying that
Well,
what we
no.
that's your argument. Your argument is that the way we assess evidence is subjective, which is partially true. Like the way we assess
Well,
evidence.
yeah, that's all I'm saying.
But
That's why I'm saying it's just slippery. It's
but
tricky.
there
That's all I'm
is
saying.
an answer. There is an objective truth, even if we're bad at getting to it. Just like the fact that there is a sun, either there is a sun or there is not a sun. The fact that we get to it very clumsily doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to whether our epistemology is good or bad. To the fact of the matter, is there a sun? Is there evidence of a sun? Yes, also objective. Both of those things are objective, regardless of our epistemologies. Doesn't matter what our epistemologies are here. So your objection is that, well, our epistemologies may be subjective, but that doesn't matter. I'm asking for the facts. I'm asking for what is evidence. And either it is evidence or it is not evidence. Whether or not our epistemologies accept it doesn't make a difference.
But I mean, that strikes me as a non sequitur. Not that it matters on atheism, but it strikes me as a non sequitur to say that we're going to start debating evidence, but it doesn't matter what our epistemology is. By definition,
No.
that would be based on our epistemology. The hidden assumption of discussing evidence would be based on our epistemology as a
No.
premise. It would have to be.
No,
Of course.
no.
Because you don't start as a tabula rasa and then there's something in front of us.
That doesn't matter.
Then you start applying your subjective worldview towards discussing, describing, dissecting, and saying, what do you see? What do I see? What
It
is
doesn't
it?
matter. Doesn't matter. So like if I said
Of course it does.
fossils are evidence of dinosaurs, that is true from the perspective of God. God is like, yes, fossils are evidence objectively of dinosaurs. Now, whether you accept it doesn't matter. Whether I accept it doesn't matter. It is a fact in reality that fossils are evidence of dinosaurs. So what I'm asking for is something that is a fact, whether or not either of us accept it. This is evidence of God. So that's what I'm asking for. I want a list of something that is objectively evidence, not just my opinion, not just your opinion. This is objectively evidence of God.
But again, I'm going to have to just read a little quotation. You said, I want. Again, you want. Okay, you want. Tom wants.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. Tom wants.
Okay.
Well, so why are you implying it's incumbent upon me to provide you what you want for some odd reason? Or?
Like in the purpose of it in this conversation, the reason we have conversations is because they're fun. And the point of my question,
Well,
like this isn't a hypothetical imperative, or this isn't the categorical imperative. It's a hypothetical imperative. I'm saying the reason I'm asking this question, what is the evidence, is because I want an answer, which is evidence that is not based on my epistemology, not based on your epistemology, but is objective. So what I want, as in the answer I'm looking for to this question,
yeah.
is something that is evidence for God, not subjectively. I don't want subjective answers. I want not subjective answers.
Of course, that's the problem of what if I think it's objective, you're going to say, no, that's just subjective.
Well,
then
that's
we're
fine.
down.
That's fine. We can
Okay,
debate
so-
that one way or the other, but the point here
Right.
is that you can present an answer which you think is objective. That's all I'm looking for. And then I can say, I don't think it's objective because of this, and then we can go through the conversation. That's fine. But
Right.
the question is just, what is objective evidence? So you're skipping like 10 steps in the conversation here. First, you just have to say, this is objective evidence.
So what I've been trying to establish is that once we get in the description you just gave, once we get going, that's when we're both bringing a ton of hidden assumptions.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Okay,
Once
good.
we
There
haven't
you go.
gotten going
Good.
yet. So let's get to the getting
Yes,
of the going.
Let's go.
And so what is the objective
So-
evidence of God?
Right. So what I've been trying to emphasize is, I'll put it this way. So it's as if you are saying, jump, okay, and you want me to say how high,
No.
and then you can have your say. But when you say jump, I'm just asking why, and then we're stuck because the answer is going to be because I want you to jump, and I'm going to say I don't care what you want. but I want you to provide me the joy of watching you jump. And I'm going to say, well, it's not incumbent upon me to provide you anything.
Right. I'm not saying it is incumbent on you. I'm just saying, for the purposes of the conversation, the reason I'm asking this question is because I want to have an answer to the question.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I know you want. Yeah. There's a lot of things I want.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I know. That's what you're saying. I get it.
Yes. So you
So
can't
like
provide any reasons?
let's say that I say to you, you know what, Tom, I can't provide any reasons. Then
Okay.
what?
I'd say, okay, that means belief I think is irrational.
And so, what does it matter if an accidentally existing ape is rational or irrational? In a universe wherein there's no universal imperative to be rational or irrational. It's
I
just
prefer to be rational, and if
subjective.
you don't, that's your subjective choice.
Exactly. You prefer. That's
Sure.
my whole point.
Sure.
Yeah. Tom prefers one thing over another, like ice
Yes.
cream flavors. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. I prefer to
There you
believe
go.
true things that are justified rather than silly, stupid things that are unjustified. Yes.
Exactly. So, okay, then goody for you. I mean, Tom prefers some things versus other things.
Yep.
And so there you go. We're done. I mean, okay, good.
Okay.
We all have
Then,
our personal preferences. That's been my
sure.
whole point all along.
Sure.
This is subjective based on personal preferences du jour, but it just so happens that I would say they're based on hidden assumptions. And those hidden assumptions are really what interest me the most. But at least we reached the point where we can both finally agree. Yes,
Wait.
this
So,
is
so
purely.
I prefer to believe true things that are justified as opposed to silly things which are unjustified, and there's a hidden assumption there somewhere.
It seems to me, yes.
What is the hidden assumption there?
Right. So I'll answer that. But first, I'm going to be a little naughty. And I'm going to say, what if I just don't feel like answering you? And they might not be as much fun for you in this conversation, but I'm
I'm
not.
having tons of fun. My chat is enjoying this thoroughly. So whether or not, whichever way you answer is entertaining to me.
Incidentally, I'm really enjoying this discussion too, even if it's like really stalled here and there and a lot of pausing. I mean, it's been a fascinating discussion thus far, but that's what I'm trying to drive home is what if I just say I have no real reason or nothing that you would find convincing. It's irrelevant, right? It's just one ape going ooh, ooh, and the other one going no, it's ooh, 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 and it just doesn't really matter. It's just one sound versus another one being lost in the sound waves are going off into space, and so what? So what? We already agreed, so nothing. That's the
Sure,
whole
sure.
point.
So if one ape says 1 + 1 = 2 and the other ape says 1 + 1 = 5, like you're right, it doesn't matter. You can choose whichever one. But there's a fact of the matter. This ape is right, that ape is wrong. So it's a fact, regardless of whether or not we care about the fact. So what is my hidden
Ah,
assumption of wanting, preferring logical, justified things as
yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
silly things?
Incidentally, and I'm not trying to evade. I just thought I'd mention this. Lawrence Krauss claims that 2 + 2 can equal 5. You know that one?
That's he's using taxi cab math, so it's only
Yeah, yeah. He's saying 2 + 2 can equal 5 given high values of 2, right? Like
yes.
2.5.
In taxi cab math,
2.5 plus
it,
2.5 can equals 5,
yes.
right? 2.5 plus 2.5 equals 5. So that's what he's saying. High values of 2.
Right. So
Anyhow.
how what are my hidden assumptions in preferring
Okay,
logical
yes.
things?
Well, I don't know because I can't read your mind, but I can take a wild guess.
Okay, take a guess.
It's because somewhere inside of you, let's see, I can't really see it, but somewhere inside of you, I think there's something that recognizes that, as you already agreed, it's not like it's going to be shocking. There is absolute truth. It is objective. It's out there. It's something that you long to know because it's not like Tom going to the ice cream shop and just selecting a flavor randomly, or maybe you like one versus the other. It's an absolute. It's certain. It's bigger than you. It's not up to you. You're irrelevant to it. You are literally irrelevant in that your opinions don't matter to its existence. It is, period. Right. And I think that there's something appealing about that to us that there's something that's so far beyond us and transcendent of us that whether we exist or not, it would still be what it is.
Yeah, it's called reality. That's not an assumption.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not saying it's an assumption. I'm saying concretely, we already agreed that reality
Right.
uh, is
So
an absolute, regardless
The
of.
question was what are my hidden assumptions in
Yeah.
preferring logical things? And then you said it was that there's something independent of us, and that's not an assumption. You just said that's not an assumption. So
Oh, okay. I
that
see what
isn't
you're saying. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
okay.
I see what you're saying. I think the hidden assumption would be that there's some sort of benefit that maybe even transcendent to having your views match empirical truth, right? It's something that you're trying to grasp at and you want to accommodate into your life via your views, where you would think it's just a subjective personal preference of yours. And I'm saying it is, but then there's that hidden assumption that this is something you should do, Tom, even if you're just telling it to yourself.
What?
And
No,
Tom,
no, no. So I don't have the assumption that believing true things is better. Like I have the I know for a fact that believing false things can make people happier and have better lives. That's what religion does. So I don't. That's not an assumption I have. It's like the reason I like to prefer true things as opposed to false things is because I like to make fun of silly people with silly beliefs. It's entertaining to me. That's the only reason.
but you don't have that anymore.
I don't have what?
You no longer possess the premise within your view, your worldview, to make fun of people for that, because you're accepting that it's just another option, just like yours is an option. What reason would there be for you to point at accidentally existing apes and say, ha ha ha, you're silly because you don't have a view that adheres to accidental reality? It's incoherent.
Um, it's a societal property. It's like, why do we point at clowns and laugh at them? It's because we find clowns funny. We find people funny if they
Or
believe
fearful.
silly things. Yes, or fearful. So it's not objectively
Yeah,
funny.
but
It's not like their silliness is objectively
right,
stupid or
right,
objectively deserves being made fun of.
right,
It's just fun for me to make fun of the silly people who have silly
right.
beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. So
So then
at the
there wasn't an assumption in there. There's no hidden assumption there. The reason I prefer logical things is to make fun of illogical people. It's not a hidden assumption.
But of course, the hiddenness would be, why is that something you enjoy? What is it about Tom's personality that makes him desire to make fun of accidentally existing apes?
Dopamine?
Okay, so that's interesting. Yes, I think that's very interesting, because then on atheism, of course, our thoughts would also be accidental, as would be our ability to discern them. And so, yeah,
Okay.
dopamine would be another accident of evolution that was just kind of
Sure, but
happened
none
to
of
have
those are hidden
happened.
assumptions. So none of those are hidden assumptions in asking what is the evidence of God. So that's
Oh,
none of
well,
those are.
right, okay. But I thought we had gone beyond that into another realm by this point. So at this point,
Gary
my
sent a super chat. This guy went on a trip and never came back. Tell him to stay off the drugs. He makes no sense and only evades questions. Why, Tom? Why?
yeah, this stuff about he only evades question is just an embarrassing thing that people like to say to people who are having discussions. It's so embarrassing that anybody who listens back to this will be able to literally tabulate the number of questions both of us have answered. It's just that my point is that if Tom says jump, I don't have to say how high. I can just say why.
Well, I think
Um,
that is not answering the question. Because if the question is what is the evidence of God, and you say you don't want to answer, that would be not answering the question, right?
well, no, that was me trying to work through what the problem is and even broaching such a question. It wasn't evading, it was just pointing out that once we start the discussion, we're no longer in an unbiased, objective, brute fact universe. Now we're dealing with two human beings who are bringing baggage to the discussion. That was my whole point. And we got to the point where we agreed that for you, it is just purely subjective and you just have a personal preference. And so you want it to be satisfied. And then if I don't satisfy it, well, that's fine too, because who cares if a ape satisfies you or not? It's not incumbent upon me to satisfy another accidentally existing ape.
So
I mean, we reached that point in the discussion.
So evade definition dictionary.com is avoid giving a direct answer to a question. So if I ask the question, what is the objective evidence of God? And you say you don't want to give it, that would technically be an evasion by the definition of the word.
Okay. And the reason I should adhere to one dictionary definition is what? Because Tom says so? Thus saith Tom? Or what?
Well, so with the super chat guy, he's like, when he says you're evading the questions, that is an accurate usage of the word given English, because the definition is that. So whether you accept it doesn't matter. His usage of the language is correct.
Okay, let me okay, question. So let's work with that a minute. Ken is evading questions. So what? What does it mean if an accidentally existing ape is evading questions in a universe where there is no universal imperative to not evade questions? See, that's just a brute fact based on hidden assumptions.
Yeah, it means that he gets to put a super chat of $5 and make fun of you and get to be correct. That is what it means.
Does that mean I get $2.5?
No.
Oh.
Maybe if you answered the question.
But see, that's what that atheist who wants to pound his apish chest at me needs to think about. Okay,
paying you $2.5? That's what I need to think about.
Let's say that he proved with 100% accuracy that an accidentally existing ape named Ken evaded questions. Does that give you some sort of temporary satisfaction to your life?
Yes.
Because it's utterly meaningless. It's incoherent that you would kind of view that as some sort of victory.
How is that incoherent? That's coherency just means like it can make sense in your mind.
Okay, so in his mind, it makes sense. And it's senseless because it's irrelevant. What does it matter if an accidentally existing ape is evading questions within a universe where there is no universal imperative to not evade questions?
It's entertaining. So again, you don't need a universal imperative for things to have meaning and purpose.
Hey, man, if you want to keep coming back to the point that for you, this is 100% subjective, personal preference-based stuff, then that's fine. That's what I said from the get-go. So that's fine with me. We finally agree again. We've gotten full circle and full circle and full circle. Full circle.
Cool. So what is the objective evidence of a God?
So it's unfortunate that, to me, it's unfortunate that there seems to be so little patience with laying groundwork and thinking about meta issues and looking at premises, because to me the issue of God's existence when it comes to having a discussion with an atheist is so far down the line I can't even see it, because there's so much groundwork to plow through.
What premises would you like to look at?
Well, the ones we've been discussing all along. I just think that.
Okay, could you put those like premise, conclusion? Give me like actual premises of the things you want to look at.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that's why I keep pointing out the hidden assumptions, because that's all I'm really hearing. Such as that we want to discuss objective evidence for God's existence just because you feel like it, because it'll be fun. And I'm saying, so what if I don't want to have that kind of fun tonight? And you're going to say, okay, well then have your fun. And we're just lost in subjectivism again, except you might walk away saying, hey, audience, this guy Ken couldn't provide me any objective evidence of God's existence. And if they're consistent thinkers, and there's no universal imperative to be consistent thinkers on atheism, then they'll have to say, hey, Tom, it doesn't matter. You agreed to that 100 times, that it's just Ken's personal preference. And we want to make fun of him because our lives are so empty or whatever. I mean,
so Ethan at Super Chats, I'll Venmo everyone $100 in chat if this guy provides convincing evidence of a God. But yes, I agreed with you. I agreed that the only reason
like they don't understand the discussion. It's like they just do not get it.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It is just for fun.
Let me just reiterate something. I'm going to reiterate. that statement is an atheist showing up and telling me to jump, but they want or demand that I answer how high. I'm just asking why, and you're done. Because why is because I feel like it, because you feel like it, because the atheist feels like it. And I'm saying I'm not impressed. I mean, what is there that's going to make me beholden to saying how high because you said jump?
Genius Tracks super chats $5, all for Tom the accidental ape and the none for the accidental humanoid theist.
I mean, it's a shame that it seems like they're so used to showing up in the scene, making demands, and having people actually attempt to jump through all their hoops.
Yeah.
That I'm just saying, hey, I'm not prepared to jump through your hoop just because you stuck out a hoop and you want me to jump through it. So then they think that I'm lacking something or I'm evading, where I'm just trying to get them to understand there's no imperative placed upon me to satisfy your subjective curiosities.
Yes, that's true. I totally agree. Typically in a conversation, though, when you're invited to like talk about God or whatever, the what happens normally is you provide evidence, people ask questions, and then you answer those questions, and that's usually how productive conversation works. Like, you're not obligated. You don't have to do productive conversation. You can be a pigeon on a chessboard, crapping all over a chessboard. Totally fine, especially from my perspective, because it's entertaining. So I'm fine with either way. But typically, when you invite on like professors and academics, they usually try to answer questions and give reasons and stuff. It's like just normal communication skills, mostly.
Yeah, well,
Oh, you froze.
What's that?
You froze. You said four and then froze, and then I heard, what's that?
Am I unfrozen?
Yes, I can see you now.
Okay.
Glorious nose hairs.
What?
It's a joke.
Well, no, I was just saying, I don't know where you got the title for this discussion, but I mean, that's okay. It's just not something that we discussed ahead of time. So it's a surprise to me that that's what we were going to be discussing, but it's fine. I mean,
oh yeah, I just put on like that's the generic title I use for pretty much all my conversations. Didn't really put any thought into it, so it's not like obligatory.
The scenario, okay. I guess the way I've trained myself to think is just to kind of think about the question before I answer it. So that usually leads me to think about a lot of things, and so it's. The scenario you just laid out, that generally when people have the kind of discussions, this is what they do. And I'm saying, well, that's really nice for them. I'm sure they enjoy it. But you are admitting time and time again that if I, me, don't feel like engaging that way, that's perfectly fine. That's just my personal preference versus yours. And your personal preference doesn't beat up my personal preference.
Yep.
And the atheists who seem to be all too pleased to be making some sort of level of fun at me, well, at least if they're consistent, which they don't have to be on atheism, we'll have to walk away saying, hey, I have a personal preference to make fun of this guy, but it's meaningless. It's sort of like one of atheism's consoling delusions, right? The delusion of subjective meaning in an objectively meaningless existence. So
it would be objectively meaningless, but subjectively it would still have a lot of meaning. So each of the person who's making fun of you would gain a lot of subjective meaning out of it, even though it's not objectively meaningful to make fun of you. Also, super chat from Marty Mad Scientist. Don't give up, kin. We don't deserve to understand God. Don't give us any evidence or understanding. It's wasted on us.
You see what I mean? These are jumps to conclusions. That's all it is. Jumps to conclusions based on hidden assumptions.
What? I don't mean...
So let's say it's a brute fact. This person, if they're going to listen to you, this person is going to have to walk away from that saying, hey, I showed that guy a thing or two, but okay, that was literally meaningless because I made fun of an ape.
Well, again, it's not literally meaningless. It would be objectively meaningless, but it would still be subjectively meaningful. So you can have subjective meaning isn't meaningless, right? So if it's subjectively meaningful, that's still meaning. Also got a super chat from Gary Grant. Is this not a debate about evidence, as most all people who believe in the supernatural have not facts but want you to answer for them? Why are you here if you have no answer all of them evade?
So the answer is no. This was not about evidence.
What would you
So there
like
you
to?
go.
What would you want to title it? How should I title it?
Oh, I don't know. Digging into meta issues might be nice.
Okay.
Because if an atheist were to ask me for evidence, again, I'm not going to reply, well, how why? I'm going to say, well, why? The first step, it seems to me, the first step would be for the atheist to justify their demand for evidence, or else
Justify
they're expecting.
justify their
Sorry.
demand for evidence.
Yeah.
So like that would be the part where I said before, like the reason we want evidence is because we can't differentiate imagination from reality with our imagination. We want something that can. Evidence is the thing that can. That would be the
Oh
justification.
man. Yeah. I wish if I could play that sentence back and slow it down, I'd probably stop it 4 times to point out
Okay, I
that's
can say it. I
just.
can say it slowly. Like our imagination can't differentiate imagination from reality. So we need
Yeah,
something
that's
that can.
okay. I mean, I'll grant that, but that's really unless you want to traipse into the matrix again. I think that it's pretty certain that as you go through your day, you can be virtually 100% sure that you're experiencing real, actual, objective things versus
Right,
not.
right,
But okay, that's fine.
right. So the reason we want evidence is because our minds aren't very good at distinguishing imagination from reality. So we need something that is, and the something that
Okay,
is evidence.
let's. Can we back up?
Sure.
Back up a second.
One sec. We got another super chat from my context. I think it is objectively the case that Ken hasn't presented any evidence of God.
And you have to see that they're never completing their thoughts. That's a half thought, another half thought. And that is relevant because that person said so. Okay, an ape said so. How is that the least bit relevant to anything?
You wanted to back up, so we're backing up to the
Never
evidence thing.
completed a thought.
You wanted to back up to
Yeah,
the. So I said,
distinguish. Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
to the point about that, we're not very allegedly we're not very good at distinguishing between reality and fantasy.
Yeah.
And so evidence allows us to distinguish between reality and fantasy.
Yep.
So why should we opt for one versus the other? Versus that, besides that, you just happen to brute fact have a personal preference for one over the other,
Well, if you're
which we already
asking,
agreed to. I don't know. It's like we're going round and round.
well, if you're asking a
That's the
question,
answer.
if you're asking a question about reality, so if I have a question, is it true? I'm asking about reality. To answer that question, you need some way to differentiate: is this imaginary or is this reality? So to answer the question, you would need evidence, right? You need because the point of asking is X true, is it true in reality, not in our imagination? And so, in order to answer that question, you need something that can differentiate imagination from reality,
Well,
right?
okay. Well, we would pause. We went too far already. We went too far because we just snuck in that we're going to distinguish one from the other. We're still stuck at why, and the answer is because some of us feel like it,
Well, no, the
and
why
some of
is
us
to
don't.
answer the question. So if the question is this true in reality? Well, then you need some way to answer the question. You would need some way to differentiate between the two. We also got a super chat from Pat Gee. Ken, specifically, which God are you arguing for? I think he said he was Jewish, Messianic Jew, so Christianity or something. I think that's still kind of a
Well,
version.
if I wasn't aware that I was arguing for any God, we're not even anywhere close to that yet.
Okay,
Uh,
so
we got to the point where we agreed that for Tom, this is 100% a subjective personal preference de jour based discussion where Tom has personal preferences, and those who don't, well, it's not really relevant except he likes to make fun of people and make fun of apes, like he's at a zoo making fun of apes and their performing their antics in their little cages. I mean, that's all it is. At least we agreed on that, right? It's just Tom enjoys this. He wants to do it with his life, spend part of his time making fun of apes, and okay, that's nice, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that as a goal for your life, but there's people making a living off of it.
Yes, I'm one of them. Marty Mad Scientist super chats. Real things can kill you, unreal things can't. Being able to tell a difference lets you play the game longer. That seems good.
Seems, exactly. It seems. There you go. Qualifying term. There you go. That's
okay.
I mean, it's fascinating how these atheists are making my point for me without even realizing it.
Yes, the atheists do like to make fun of theists. I agree. So we're going back to the question
no,
of
that had nothing to do with what I just said.
Well, you were asking a question of.
It's as if that person doesn't recognize what they just said. The qualifying term was seems. So guess what? That person was applying a subjective personal preference du jour as well. It seems to them this way. Ergo, it's something that Ken needs to hear for some unknown reason.
Well, so in that sentence, the seems is hyperbolic. It's meant as a joke. So it's like saying things that survive typically do better than things that don't survive. And so the seems there. Well, the seems there
is a hidden assumption.
Not exactly. So the seems there is hyperbolic in that it's pointing out that the surviving things don't die and the die things do die.
And so what?
Well, that was just the point of the sentence. Whether you agree or think it's important doesn't matter. The seam is the hyperbolic there, so it wasn't meant as a.
Sorry, I don't mean to. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, okay. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
The hidden assumption is the implication that one should opt for one over the other one, and that's just a jump to a conclusion. It's an assertion. There's no standard behind it. It's just a baseless statement that is based on hidden assumptions. That's all it is. It's the hidden assumption is one should be preferred over the other one, but you're saying it doesn't matter. There's no should. There's just personal preference. That's subjective. Yeah. How many times do I have to say it? We're finally agreeing on that, and we're agreeing 1,000 times.
Yep.
And all these atheists making comments are making the same point, and they don't even seem to realize it. So why opt for one over the other?
Well, so that leads back to the previous topic we were talking about: is why are we looking for evidence? So if I ask a question like, is there a rabbit in the box or a lizard in the box? In order to answer the question, if you want to answer the question, you would need to look inside of the box. So if you want to answer the question, you look in the box. So like if I ask, is something true? If you want to answer the question, you would you'd need some way to differentiate imagination from reality.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Yes, that's what we want. Sorry, what is in the box? Is there evidence in the box? Evidence of a God, perhaps?
Right. So let me just take one step back to address this statement that we agree is merely jumping to the conclusion that survival should be preferred versus non-survival, right? So it'd be important for that person to recognize that on atheism, even the instinct to want to survive is accidental.
Okay.
And there's no imperative to adhere to it. It's just another subjective personal preference du jour based on hidden assumptions, which is that, hey, I want to survive.
Sure.
For a brute fact that I just feel like it.
Yes, we agreed on that many times. So do you have any evidence of God?
Good. You see, okay, let me try something out for fun because,
okay.
We're kind of, if there's anything we've agreed a million times is that this is about fun.
Yes.
And boy, we're putting the fun in dysfunction. Sorry. So how about this? Well, it seems to me that there's been, I don't know, I can't appeal to a study, but maybe I would imagine throughout human history, hundreds of thousands of people have claimed to have had experiences with God.
Yes. Was there a second part to that sentence?
No, that would seem to be
Okay.
evidence for God's existence.
Okay. Super chat from Jacob. In his chair was life, and the life was the chair of men. Bible quotes. Bible chair. So, okay. So you said many people had experiences of God, and that's evidence of God. Do you think that the experiences can differentiate imagination from reality?
Well, I was saying before that I'm not sure it's a viable view that in our daily lives we have much of a problem distinguishing truth from reality.
Oh, that's a fair point. So,
But
do people see illusions, delusions, fallacies, biases, hallucinations, misconceptions? Are those really common in human minds?
I'd say so. Maybe, like I said, in our just common daily lives, probably not. But of course, there's always instances of such things. Like maybe you're alone in a room, but out of the corner of your eye, you see somebody there. So you turn your head and it's just an umbrella and a coat on a rack or whatever. So that
Um,
delusion was then dispelled by the um, evidence before your eyes, right? You can inspect it and recognize for that fleeting moment, you were actually delusional. And then T jumped right back into reality by examining the evidence.
thank you, Jib Jack, for the
But
five
whatever, that's a
dollars
metaphor, and I'm not a big fan of this debating metaphors,
metaphor.
frankly.
Uh, well, so the example I'm thinking of is type 1 and type 2 fallacies. It is the proclivity for humans to see agency in things that have no agency. Like when a kid thinks there's a monster under the bed or a monster in the closet, or when like you hear a rustle in the bushes, you think it's most likely a lion when it's just the wind. This is a very common thing among humans, right? This happens all the time. Pareidolia, right? You would agree? This happens a lot.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
so it could be the case that when people experience God, it could just be one of these fallacies that people experience a lot, right? It's possible.
Yes.
So you would need some way to differentiate between whether it's one of the fallacies or whether it's real. You need to differentiate the imagination from the reality, right?
Right.
Okay, so does the fact that they've had experiences, is that a good way to differentiate or not so much?
Well, this is why we circled around and around again into the issue of that now we're in a different realm. Now we're in a realm of
Real
what
questions, yes.
does count, does not count, is viable, is inviolable, is cogent, is not cogent, counts as evidence, doesn't count as evidence. And that's what I was saying. This is a whole different discussion. So, and by the way, I was just throwing out a silly example, but why not say, hey, if people have claimed these experiences, that counts as evidence or and a form of level of type of sort of evidence. So why think that they were not actually experiencing objective reality?
Because of all those fallacies I listed. So, like, if it could be those fallacies or it could not be those fallacies, and we want a way, in order to show it's not, in order to think, to answer your question, why should we think it's real? We would need some way to differentiate, is this one of the real things or the imaginary things, right?
Of course, yes, but we're granting that this is something we, whoever we is, are agreeing to do because we feel like it.
I'm not sure because it said like if you're claiming it's real and not imaginary, then you would want to provide to differentiate real and imaginary. Because if you're saying if
I
something is
would.
X, I think so. Like if you're saying something is X and not Y, then you would need to be able to tell the difference between X and Y, right?
I think that maybe you're not appreciating what a deep hole you dug for yourself.
Well, I'm just asking you
So
questions here.
your hope,
I don't think there's a
well,
hole.
exactly. No, no, exactly. You're asking me questions after tearing down the whole premise upon which questions should be asked and answered. That's the problem. I don't think you're
What?
appreciating that you've dug yourself such a
Say,
hole
say,
that
say
when
that
you're
again. Tearing down the reasons to ask and answer questions or something. The new super chat from Gently. Talking of hidden assumptions, why are you hiding your motivation to believe in God? Are you afraid Tom might kick you right in the narrative?
I'm not aware I'm hiding anything, but I would just ask that person why what it matters to them if an accidentally existing ape is hiding something. It's I mean, are you really not incorporating what you're hearing? Are you that?
Incorporating?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, are atheists just really not incorporating the implications of their worldview? Is that what's going on here? I mean, if you make a bed, it would be expected that you would sleep in it. I'm just not seeing that these atheists want to sleep in the bed they made. I mean, they made a bed and it, boy, it's nice looking. They really like it. They want to show it off. So then when I'm saying, well, let's see you sleep in it, nope, I'm not going to do it.
What sleep? What do you
Not
mean
going
by
to do it.
sleep in it? Because I like agreed with you a bunch of times. Yes, this is about emotional joy, making fun of them. So I've agreed with you. I think
Yeah.
I'm sleeping in the bed, right?
Yeah, you're definitely snoring away, cutting Z's, man. Out there off in La La Land having nice dreams and everything. I was talking specific, and let me just pause a second. This is why I said this needs to be between Ken and Tom, because when you were speaking of all atheists as we, I'm now thinking that's not a good idea that you do that. Neither am I speaking for all theists. That's just too broad. So right now, I was speaking in terms of this questioner apparently not wanting to incorporate the
Go. Sorry, I
not
was.
wanting to.
There's like six people who said you're all drunk at the same time. Strange coincidence.
Um,
So you're saying
well,
this
here's to
guy
you.
was that? It's a very light drink, like beer,
Mm.
maybe.
If you must know, it's actually kombucha.
Mm.
Does that sound familiar?
Yes, I have had some. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of alcohol. I don't like the way it tastes.
Oh no, that's just the
Oh, like the tea kind, the tea stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's a byproduct of yeast and bacteria. It's supposed to be really good for your tummy.
Got it.
No, there's no alcohol in it. It's more like it tastes like a vinegar, honestly.
New super chat from My Context. Perhaps he would be willing to present what he thinks an atheist must think, given that he keeps talking about what must be an atheist worldview.
So just to finish up the thought before I we got to talk about my alleged drunkenness. um, it seems like that atheist who asked the previous question or made the previous point is not incorporating the implications of their worldview into their statements.
What? So the My Context, his question would
But
be is
the
like,
problem is, let me just finish just a little bit. But the problem is, there's no universal imperative in on an atheist worldview for them to incorporate the implications of an atheist worldview. So it's kind of like a catch-22. They don't have to do it. I'm just pointing out the fact that they're not doing it. It's obvious.
well, I think that's why My Context asked his question. Like, how would you think an atheist who was applying that answer a question?
How would I can think an atheist who was incorporating the implications of their worldview would answer what question?
Any question?
Oh, any question. Well, that's slightly broad. Any question who that could ever be conceived. It's slightly broad.
I think it's more like specifically in relation to our conversation, something about like,
Right. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so that's fine. So it would be more like, look, if I can appeal to atheists broadly to do anything at all, I would say pay attention to Tom Jump. He is the one who is making it crystal clear that this is purely subjective, purely personal preference based du jour. It's just, if you want to make fun of people, give yourself that consoling delusion. Have your fun, have a little subjective meaning in your day, even though it's just not objectively meaningful. It's good enough. And this is not about actually there being any sort of imperative to adhere to
What this is in the conversation,
empirical
right?
truth. This is just about having fun and making fun of people because it makes us momentarily feel good.
Right, when you say this, like, is this conversation this?
Yeah, this,
Okay.
like this discussion we're having, it's just based on atheists wanting to make fun of people. And, I've given credit to the new atheist movement. If they succeeded in anything, it's getting a lot of very young people to think that they can replace reasoned discourse with being childish, and that's good enough. And the internet is saturated with that. It's just showing up, jumping to conclusions, making demands, and then making fun of people because they don't provide answers that are
Evidence?
subjectively appealing to them. It's completely arbitrary. It's incoherent, the
Well, I
whole
wouldn't-
entire scenario.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say like it's meant to be not object or subjectively not convincing. I'd say it's more like they're so silly, they're so obviously flawed. It's comedic. That's usually what it is. So it's usually they pick things that have been proven scientifically to not work as evidence, and they're saying that's evidence, which is comedic. We got another super chat from Virillion. Ken, you don't have a worldview. You just oppose the atheist worldview without any rationality.
Okay, let's grant for a second that that's an accurate statement. Where's the rest of your statement? Where is it?
The rest? What rest?
Such as, and the meaning is, and the matters because, and the point is, and what? It's a middle. It has no premise and no conclusion. It's just a middle.
Well, again,
I mean,
like I mentioned earlier, I don't think you need that for anything. You don't need to end.
well, exactly.
It's
You
important
don't think
because
we need anything. You
Right.
think we just need to have a ball, have
Well,
a good time,
we
laugh,
just need
and
truth.
We're done.
Yeah, we just need truth,
What-
and then we can have fun with the truth. Yes. So, like, we can
Oh,
say
well, but-
dinosaurs
okay,
existed, and we don't need to add on a second part of the sentence and says this is important because you don't need that part of a sentence. Dinosaurs existed, and full stop. So you can have truth statements and evidence statements, and you don't need a second part. Like the part you keep asking for, you don't need it.
No, the issue is if we say dinosaurs existed full stop, then we're done. That's it. We're done.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about ice cream flavors because we're done.
Sure.
There you go.
Yes.
So there you go. Okay, so when you refer to because some of the theists give some answers that are silly or flawed, you're sneaking in a hidden assumption that it's some sort of imperative to not be silly or flawed. But you're going to follow that up with saying, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. If they want to be silly and flawed, that's perfectly acceptable. It's just that I'm going to have a laugh at them.
Yes.
I mean, it's absurd. The entire scenario is
Why is that
absolutely
absurd?
incoherent.
Why is that absurd?
Because what you're encouraging people to do, maybe you're not literally encouraging, but I'm going to say that it seems to me if you're regularly streaming and talking to people, the encouragement is let's just have a ball, let's have a blast, eat, drink, for tomorrow we die, as it's stated in the Bible.
Well, why is that absurd?
Yeah.
You said it's absurd. Mummy Vale said Jesus and Bruce Lee both walked with dinosaurs. Super chat. Thank you. But why is that absurd? Like, I'm not seeing the absurdity there.
Well, it's not absurd on your worldview.
Is it absurd on your worldview?
Well, of course.
Why?
Because going through life making fun of accidentally existing apes is just an absurd scenario.
Why? Like, if I ask for a definition of absurd, you can't use the word absurd in the definition. So what is?
No, you asked why is it absurd?
Yes,
You
and then you
didn't
said
ask
it
for a
was.
definition of absurd.
Well, yeah. So like, why? If I ask why is something absurd, you can't then say because it's absurd. You can't use the word in your answer.
Well, can't I?
No.
You're about to say that, yes, I can, because I'm just an accidentally existing ape and I'm just having fun. So I can, right?
Sure,
Right?
sure. It is physically
There you go.
possible.
There you go.
Youth of Pro Dilemma super chats. Ken, think of the most disgusting act? Question mark. Now, is it immoral of God if God ordered it? Please, just yes or no. Who really lacks a moral foundation?
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It's just, it never ceases to amaze me that I can have all these discussions and people still act as if they didn't hear anything. What do you,
We didn't hear much.
well, no, we heard. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Take this video, edit me out, just get rid of me. I'm irrelevant, and just splice together. Maybe I'll have to do this. Splice together all the instances where Tom is saying, "Hey, this is just subjective personal preference, and that's all there is to it." And there you go. So then when you show up and you jump to the conclusion that it's incumbent upon me to answer yes or no, it's irrelevant. It's a non sequitur. And being non sequitur doesn't matter on atheism. That's the whole point. It's irrelevant to that it's irrelevant, that it's irrelevant, that it's irrelevant. So you want to show up, you want to say, demand, Ken, say yes or no. And I'm saying, why? And you're done. You have nothing to go on after that. Because all you can say is
He
the
prefers
accidentally existing ape called Ken doesn't want to answer yes or no. And now I'm going to pound my ape's chest in victory, and it's meaningless, subjectively meaningful to you temporarily, but we're agreeing that's just subjective, that there's no objective meaning behind you going off and claiming victory because Ken refused to say yes or no.
Thank you for the super chat, Dima. 99 euros? 0.99 euros? Yes, so he doesn't mean you're objectively obligated to answer with yes or no. He's saying he would prefer it if you'd answered yes or no, because
Exactly.
he can show that your ideology doesn't make any sense if you answer the questions. And then presumably he's saying the reason you don't is because you know that it would make your worldview look ridiculous if you did answer.
Oh man, so many notes. No.
Evade left, dodge right, duck, jump, dodge left, AB, AB, start. Sean Kelly.
The previous statement, it was peppered with hidden assumptions. I'm not sure why people are just refusing to consider their hidden assumptions.
I don't think you can put pepper on a super chat. I don't think it's possible to pepper a super chat. It'd be cool though. I would prefer if you could do that.
Well, read that one again and just kind of stop between what are supposed to be sentences.
Can think of the most disgusting act? Question mark.
No. After that one.
After that one. Dima music.
The one about.
Go ahead.
Making sense and ridiculous. That one.
Making sense and ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, I think the one I read after that was evade left, dodge right, duck, jump, dodge.
Before that one.
Before that one.
I might have to go try to find it.
Okay, I don't remember which one it was because that wasn't a super chat. I think it was just a regular chat. That one I read. I can't find it. So Youth of Pro Dilemma super chat. It's a non sequitur. That's not how you spell non sequitur. Isn't the notion that all powerful creator that created us is incapable of an immoral act a non sequitur?
Do you want me to go by myself?
Hold on just a second, please.
Sure.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just got the wife shepherd's hook around the neck. Like we're supposed to be leaving the house in 10 minutes precisely.
Oh, you gotta get ready. Cool.
Well, I'm already dolled up. Come on.
Going with the Bruce Lee shirt.
At the very least, like I said, you can edit me out of this, and you can just make sure you understand Tom's point. I'd be more than glad to come back and actually just
present evidence,
not rehash everything, but continue on. And I hate that I have to leave. Honestly, I didn't realize time was flying by when we're having, guess what? So much fun. Right?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. You want to give a shout out to where anybody can find you before you go, and then I'll let you get off and go do whatever.
Well, I'm right here. That's where they can find me. I'm right here.
I meant like a website, YouTube.
No, thing. I know. No, I know. And I I appreciate your engagement. I think that at least we came to a very strong, solid agreement, and I hope that atheists will incorporate that into their worldview, even though there's no imperative for them to do so. So that's kind of a losing battle right there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm at truefreethinker.com. I don't need to give out 100 different social networking site URLs. It's just that simple, truefreethinker.com. And I appreciate you for letting me mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually on the screen, like the entire video is
Oh,
next to your name, so people
oh,
can
that's
see
right.
that.
Yeah,
Cool.
I usually have that on there. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I will let you get to dinner or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
See you
Thanks so
later.
much. God bless you all. Bye
Yep.
bye.
Thank you, Dima. Appreciate it. This was fun. Yeah, it was something. It was something. All right. I'm gonna go like, I don't know, get a drink or something. But remember, all you got baked in assumptions. Don't forget your baked in assumptions of why should you answer questions with evidence. Good night.